Hey, what's up guys? So first of all, you might be thinking, wait, what is this? I see you finally uploaded a new WoT of Tanks Mythbusters episode. So, where is it? Well, that's the thing I actually wanted to talk about today. So first of all, to get things clear, no, this is not a new WoT of Tanks Mythbusters episode. So if you're here solely for that, then feel free to click off right now and go watch something else. But what this actually is an update video about probably the most popular series on my channel. So lately I've seen a lot of comments pop up on my channel asking me if there is going to be another WoT of Tanks Mythbusters video, since the latest episode is already 5 months old. So, short answer to that is no. And this hasn't to do with me not playing WoT of Tanks anymore as much as I used to, since I actually really enjoyed making new Mythbusters episodes, even in my WoT of Tanks quotation mark dips, since it actually boosted my motivation to play the game again a lot. But it's more the fact that I feel that I've basically already tested every cool and surprising feature WoT of Tanks has to offer. And trust me, I tried for 4 months straight to gather enough cool myths to make a new episode for you guys. But I simply wasn't able to find any new, fresh and exciting WoT of Tanks myths to cover. So does this mean we have reached the end of the whole Mythbusters concept? Well, actually I'm not sure about that, since some people also suggested that I should continue the Mythbusters series but with a different game, such as War Thunder for example. So if you love to see War Thunder Mythbusters, let me know in the comments down below together with some War Thunder myths as well, and maybe I'll give it a shot, who knows, right? But as I stated before, this does sadly mean that we actually did reach the end of WoT of Tanks Mythbusters. But don't worry, since apparently Wargaming simply ripped off my entire WoT of Tanks Mythbusters concept and made their own version of WoT of Tanks Mythbusters on their channel called Research and Destroy. So if you want to know how Wargaming recycles all the myths I already tested for you guys in their series, then feel free to check him out, I guess. Oh my god. But especially for all the original WoT of Tanks Mythbusters fans here on my channel, I've made one last compilation with my personal favorite myths that we tested over the past 16 episodes, since I wanted to give my all-time top series on my channel a proper goodbye. And before I'm gonna roll the compilation, I just wanted to say that I'm very thankful to everyone who supported WoT of Tanks Mythbusters over the past 2 years, as well as to everyone who took their time to actually help me test each and every myth covered in the videos. And I certainly had a whole lot of fun testing around with you guys in those countless training rooms. So thank you so much for that. But for now, I guess this is sadly it for Mythbusters, so I hope you enjoyed this very last bit of Mythbusting that you're gonna see on my channel. So I hope you enjoy the compilation, and maybe we see Mythbusters again in War Thunder. But I'll just leave that for you guys to decide. Anyways, here we go. Myth number 4. A T1 Gundam can kill a mouse. So this myth was a bit more complicated, so it needs a bit more explanation. So basically my plan is to push the mouse up against the wall to reveal its belly. And if you take a look at tanks.gg, at the 3D armor model, you can see that the belly of the mouse actually only is 50mm thick. And if you take a look at the T1 Gundam's premium penetration, it says 53mm. So theoretically it should be possible. But of course we tested this out, so I gathered my T1 firing squadron of doom, a mouse and the E100 to push the mouse in place. So yet again we went to Paris, and as you can see right here, I used the E100's big engine to push the mouse up against the wall to reveal its belly. And once the mouse got in position, the T1s opened fire, and holy shit, the mouse is actually taking some damage. So it seems to be working. But of course it takes quite a while to drain the massive 3000 hit the mouse has. But after a few minutes of constant firing and after a metric shit ton of tier 1 premium rounds, the mouse finally died. Conclusion. Well, I think the clip spoke for itself, and honestly, I never thought that it was possible for a flipping tier 1 tank to kill the most heavily armored tank in the game. So therefore, this myth is definitely confirmed. Myth number 4. It is possible to make a bridge out of tanks. So for this myth, we again gathered as many big tanks as possible and we simply just start crashing into the waterways. At first it didn't seem so successful since everyone who tried to drive over the bridge ended up crashing into the water as well, but after a few more failed attempts, the bridge became so large that we finally managed to get a tank across. So conclusion, as long as the bridge is big enough and stable enough, you can actually make it work. So therefore I call this myth confirmed. Myth number 1. A squad of T1s can push a mouse. So I guess that everyone who plays World of Tanks already knows that the mouse is the heaviest tank in the entire game. So there must be no way for some tiny little tier 1 tanks to push this massive behemoth forwards, right? Well, let's find out. So on paper this is mostly about the horsepower to ton ratio. Of course there are other factors involved such as ground resistance, but since ground resistance only has a very minor effect on the outcome of this myth, we left it out for this time. So as I already said, on paper, in order for this to work, the T1 simply have to equal or exceed the horsepowers of the mouse's own engine in order to make it mobile. So let me give you guys an example of what I mean. So the mouse by itself weighs about 188 tons and has a 1750 horsepower engine, which gives it a horsepower to ton ratio of around 9.3. So in order to move the mouse roughly at its normal speed, we need enough T1 Gunninghams to equal that 9.3 horsepower to ton ratio. So let's take a look at the mobility stats of only one T1, which weighs 7.5 tons and has a 132 horsepower engine. So divide 1750 by 132 and you get rounded up 14, which means that horsepower wise 14 T1 Gunningham engines should even more than equal the mouse's 1750 horsepower engine, which means that on paper 14 T1s should be enough to push the mouse out of its place. But is that also the case in World of Tanks? Well, let's find out. So to test this out, we went out to Himmelsdorf and started out this experiment lightly by using 23 T1s instead of 14 to make it a lot easier to test and more error proof. And at the first test we first started off by pushing the mouse off its place with a little help of gravity by positioning the mouse on a slight slope, and after some organization the mouse did indeed started to move. So technically this myth is already confirmed, but I decided to step it up a notch and actually try and see if the T1s could push a mouse entirely off a flipping cliff. So we tried that as well, just as a little bonus. So we went out to Himmelsdorf again and I set up my mouse sideways in the gap of the well-known Himmelsdorf cliff fall. So here we go, the moment of truth. The T1s line up and start to push on my side, and after it almost went wrong and the T1s blew up, they eventually managed to give me the required horsepower to move me towards the drop, and boom, there we go. Me and the mouse together with 21 T1s all crashed down the hill, resulting in a massive explosion. So conclusion, yes, as you could clearly see on the test footage, it is indeed possible for a squad of T1s to push a mouse out of its place and even crash it down a flipping cliff. As long as you have enough T1s to make up for the mouse's own engine power, it should be doable. So therefore I can safely say that this myth is confirmed. Myth number 2. A tank can go over 100 km per hour. So I guess most of you guys know that the tank with the fastest top speed in the game currently is the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen, with a top speed of 79 km per hour. But that is still 21 km per hour away from the 100 mark. So could it be possible for a Rheinmetall Panzerwagen to go over 100 km per hour in World of Tanks? Well, let's find out. But before we're gonna start to get into the testing scenario, I bound a few rules to this myth, which are that the speed must be achieved while the tank's tracks are still in contact with the ground, and I can only use the help of the other tanks pushing me and driving downhill. So simply falling from a high cliff doesn't count, since it's not actually achieving and sustaining the top speed, even though the WoT speedometer does measure the speed of a falling vehicle as well for some reason. So with all that cleared up, let's get right into the testing of this myth. So to start off, we considered a lot of different maps to try this on, but eventually it all came down to either El Haluf or Westfield. So we did a little pre-test on both maps, and after those pre-tests we came to the conclusion that the hill on the El Haluf spawn provided the best boost. Since fair enough, the hills on Westfield might be steeper and longer, but the main issue with the Westfield hills was the fact that there were a lot of bumps in the terrain, which would mess up the line of the other Rheinmetall Panzerwagons who were providing the extra horsepowers. So for the map, El Haluf it is. Which brings me to the second part of the testing scenario, which is the insane amount of extra horsepowers. Since we managed to create a train of 29 other Rheinmetall Panzerwagons to provide a whopping 31,900 extra horsepower. Which I know isn't realistic since the train will eventually break up anyways, but you get the point, we had a lot of extra horsepower. And that basically wraps up the testing scenario, so let's dive right into the results. So here we are at El Haluf, me and my well-trusted Rheinmetall Panzerwagen together with my 29 portable engines, and we start to line up at the top of the hill. So after waiting for the train to form, I counted down, we smashed down the gas, and we're off at a top speed of already 85, 90, oh, the hill goes flat again, and we didn't manage to get up to speeds over 90 kilometers per hour. And the weird part is that the tank simply refuses to further accelerate at the 90 km per hour mark. Even after retesting it some more times off streams, I never managed to breach the 90 km per hour mark. But before I'm gonna take you guys to the conclusion of this myth, I have a little bonus test for you. Since we also tried the same thing with the slowest tank in the game, which of course can no other be than the TOC 2, to see how far we could push it. And to be honest, the results were absolutely insane, and I honestly could not believe my eyes. So, you know what? I'm just gonna show you my live reaction to this. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1, go! Let's go, let's go, let's go! See how fast we could go. Okay, so 21, 20, oh, we're literally not going faster than this. 40, oh my god, no way, 50, 70, holy shit, 71 kilometers per hour, what the fuck? Holy fuck. I did not expect for a TOC to go that fast. What the actual fuck? 72 kilometers per hour in a fucking TOC. How? How is that even possible? Wow, can you believe it? Because honestly, I still can't believe that we reached a top speed of 73 kilometers per hour in a flipping TOC 2. Fair enough, it's still not 100 kilometers per hour, and it's still far away from what we achieved with the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen, but I still think it was definitely worth showing you guys. So now, with that little bonus clip out of the way, let's move on to the conclusion of this myth. So, conclusion. No, our testing has shown that it is impossible for a tank to go any faster than 90 km per hour while still touching the ground. So, I believe that Wargaming put some kind of speed cap in the game code to prevent tanks from going faster than 90 km per hour while driving on land. But on the other hand, you can go over 90 km per hour while falling. So, I don't know, did we do something wrong? Is there any better way to reach top speeds? Let me know in the comments down below, and I might retest this myth in the future. But for now, the current test result speaks for itself, which means that for now this myth remains busted. Myth number 3. Standard AP ammo is better than premium APCR ammo at a long range. So, sounds pretty simple to test, right? Ha, well, wrong. This myth has to be one of the most fucking complicated pieces of shit I've ever figured out on this whole Mythbusters series. Why? Well, let me tell you. So I think most of you know that when you fire AP or APCR shells in World of Tanks, the penetration of those shells drop down increasingly the further the shell has to travel. By the way, in case you wonder, this does not count for HE, hash and heat ammo, since those shells are made from a completely different concept and don't get affected by range. But anyways, APCR shells are known for using a crap ton more penetration per 100 meters than AP shells. So that's why I was thinking, could it be possible that at a very long range AP shells have more penetration capacity left than APCR shells? So I thought, you know what, let's find it out. So I went to the World of Tanks forums to look up the penetration decrease percentage per 100 meters for AP and APCR shells, and most posts said the same, that AP shells have a 2% penetration decrease per 100 meters and that APCR shells have a 15.2% penetration decrease per 100 meters. So with those values, it's quite easy to calculate at what range AP would be more effective, right? Well, wrong, since the calculated values didn't make any sense whatsoever when tested in game. So we concluded that those percentages were complete utter bullshit. So we looked for another way to determine the penetration drop-offs for AP and APCR, and we figured out the following. When you hover over an AP or an APCR shell in a certain tank in the World of Tanks garage, it gives you the penetration value left at 100, 200 and 500 meters. And since Wargaming gives you 3 correct values, you can calculate a penetration drop-off formula for each shell type. And if you put those formulas in a graph together, you can exactly see at what range AP becomes better than APCR for that particular tank. As for example, this graph of the IS-7 shows here, with the y-axis being the penetration value in millimeters and the x-axis showing the range in meters. And with the blue line being AP ammo and the red line being APCR ammo. And this particular graph shows that at a range of approximately 900 meters, theoretically, the AP pen should become better than the APCR pen. But here is where we ran into another obstacle, and that is the fact that any shell in World of Tanks will automatically disappear after it has traveled 720 meters, which means that it simply can't travel further than 720 meters. So if we were to set up an IS-7 and the target 720 meters apart, then in the IS-7's case the APCR ammo would still have more penetration left than the AP ammo. So to test this out with the IS-7 is, due to the shell travel limit, pretty much impossible. But we didn't give up there. So we went on and looked for other tanks that maybe have even worse APCR shells than the IS-7. So we repeated the creating of the graphs and formulas multiple more times for multiple more tanks, and a funny thing we noticed is that for some vehicles the AP and APCR formula was linear and for the others it was exponential. It basically was a complete mix and match sometimes. So I don't know how Wargaming makes up these formulas, but they really don't make any sense in my opinion. But anyways, after a couple tests we ended up with the tier 3 Russian premium tank, the T-45. And as you can see on the T-45's graph right here, the intersection points of its AP and APCR rounds already set at as close as 600 meters, which completely eliminates the maximum shell travel distance obstacle. So we could actually test this one out in game. So to set it up we needed obviously a T-45, a tank with an armor plate of about 25 to 30 millimeters thick according to the graph, in this case the Scorpion G's 30 millimeter thick front plate, and a measurement / spotter tank, in this case the RU-251. So we went out to a big and open map called Malinovka, and we used the RU-251 to measure out the distances in game. So at the T-45's view, the RU-251 was roughly 500 meters away from him, and at the Scorpion's view, the RU-251 was 215 meters away from him. So add that up together and you have a total distance of 715 meters in between the T-45 and the Scorpion. And according to the graph, this should be enough for that penetration difference to take effect. So after a couple of trial and error shots, because the maximum random range is 565 meters, after that you can't physically see the tank anymore, and obviously 715 meters is far beyond that. So we had to blind fire all the shots. So again, after a couple trial and error shots, the T-45 finally found the sweet spot on his aim, and to my surprise it really starts to look like that indeed AP is more effective than APCR at this range. But you also have to keep in mind that there is an RNG factor in penetration as well, so some AP and APCR shots are stronger than other shots. But to get a more clear result we tested it another time, but this time with the Panzer B2 as the shooter, because as you can see on its graph, the Panzer B2 actually has a much larger gap in between the AP and APCR pen at roughly 715 meters. And as the target we went for the AMX CDC because its 30mm frontal plate is a bit less angled than the Scorpion's one, which should improve the test results. So we replicated the exact same experiment, so same distance, same position, and yes, look at this, this is a lot more accurate. As you can see, we get a good sequence of 4 clear pens with AP and 4 clear bounces with APCR. So I guess we are done with the testing here, so let's quickly move on to the conclusion of this myth. So conclusion, who thought maths came out useful one day, since it helped a lot with uncovering this very complicated myth. And even though this is far from useful to actually keep in mind in random battles, since you're talking about distances of at least 600 meters for this to take effect. So in 99% of the cases, gold APCR ammo is always better than standard AP ammo. But the test results prove that it is indeed possible for standard AP to become more effective than premium APCR at a very extremely long range. So therefore I can safely say that this myth is confirmed.